If you're wondering what just happened, I'll explain it to you. A few days ago, I took part in a WCA competition. A WCA competition is a competition that's moderated by the World Cube Association. In other words, it's official. This competition was called the Mumbai Cubing Heatwave 2025, and it was held in South Bombay, coincidentally right opposite to where I was born. Anyways, the competition started at 8 am, but I didn't show up until 9 because my event was scheduled to begin at 9:45. The event that I was waiting for was the 3x3 event, the main event that pretty much every single person participates in. Before the event began, there was a briefing about the guidelines on how to ensure that the event flows smoothly. Since there were so many participants for this event, it was divided into groups according to speed. So Group 1 being the newcomers and Group 4 being the top level of cubers. I was in Group 3, so I volunteered to be a judge for the first 2 rounds. As a judge, I didn't really have to do much. All I had to do was ensure the participant who was solving was following the WCA guidelines and putting in their times onto their scorecards. For all WCA competitions, your cube is covered when you arrive at the solving station and is only uncovered when you tell the judge that you're ready. After it's uncovered, you get 15 seconds to inspect the cube and plan what moves you're going to do. The judge gives you a warning at 8 seconds and then another warning at 12 seconds. At 12 seconds, you should normally put the cube down and start the timer. The timer is pretty straightforward to use. You place both your hands on the pads on the left and right, and when the light turns green, you start solving the cube. After the 2 rounds of judging were over, I had to submit my cube and wait for my turn to solve. Each round has 5 solves. Your best and worst times are removed from the timings, and the remaining 3 are averaged to give you your final score. If you place in the top 36 in round 1, you qualify for round 2. So I just had to make sure I didn't make any errors in my solves to qualify for round 2. For my first solve of the competition, I got a 21.02, which was pretty slow, but was still good enough to help me qualify for the next round. The next solve was a 21.55, which was my slowest solve. This meant that it would not be counted in my average, or so I thought. For my third solve, I managed to break sub 20 and get a 19.18. This would help me get close to a sub 20 average, which would allow me to comfortably move on to round 2. At this point, I was calculating what I would need to get the sub 20 average, and I needed a 19-second solve. And I did get one, however, it was a DNF. On the very last turn, my finger caught an edge and turned it, ruining my 19-second solve. That would get me a sub 20-second average. With the WCA guidelines being how they are, the DNF became my slowest solve, and my second solve was going to be counted for my average. For my last solve in round 1, I decided that I would go for a 20-second average. I pulled off a pretty good solve and got a 19.16 with a +2. So my actual timing was 17.16, but because I got a +2, it became 19.16. This was my fastest round in round 1. This gave me the scores that would be counted: 21.02, 21.55, and 19.18. Because of the 19-second solve, I was able to get a 20-second average of 20.58. Round 2 was actually a pretty good round for me. Even though I knew my chances of making it into the finals were incredibly slim because only the top 14 went through, I was aiming for that sub 20 average again. For my first solve, I got a +2, giving me a time of 23.62. I knew that this would stay the way that it is and I wouldn't get a solve slower than that, so I didn't worry about it too much. My next solve was actually pretty good, a 17.08. That made it my fastest solve. This would also not be counted in my average. That gave me a lot of relief because it meant that I had one really good backup solve, and I could feel the momentum building, and I started believing that a sub 20 average was actually within reach. Knowing this, I knew that all I had to do was get a few 19 and 18-second solves to get a sub 20 average. And I did exactly that. I got a 19.68, 18.23, and a 21.88. Even though the 21.88 wasn't exactly what I was looking for, it still helped me get an average of 19.93. Even though I didn't qualify for the final round, I was feeling good about getting that sub 20-second average. I spent the next few hours going at that mirror cube, and I did finally solve it. Truth be told, it was quite easy and I just didn't understand it at first. I also got a few photos taken at the photo booth, which was free for all competitors, which is a pretty cool inclusion if you ask me. Overall, the entire experience of this competition was really good, and I'm definitely going to be coming back for another one.